This is the Alchemy Workshop, and this is part 2 of the ultimate Mokume Gane from Quarters tutorial. I'm heating up the stack of quarters right now, obviously speeding that up. And here I'll put it to normal speed where I first start to set the initial weld. You'll see I do just a few very light taps with the hammer on each side. Take your time to get that stack of quarters to the right temperature, otherwise it's not going to work. I'm multitasking. I'm doing this to get as much as I can out of my propane. So I'm also heating up a couple blades to be quenched. So that's where you see me like drop some hot metal in the oil, etc. I'm also using a piece of scrap steel to get it really hot and put it on my anvil a couple times. You'll see in the video to just keep my anvil face really warm. That'll help that bottom area a lot from blowing apart. Next round after I heat it, I can hit a little bit harder with the hammer. Not that hard though. I'm going to just slowly increase my blows, how hard I hit it between each heating cycle. It cools fast, so you want to just get it back into the forge and keep flipping it around. But you can see here it's that weld is pretty much set. I'm going to just go a couple more rounds just to really make sure it is set. I'm quenching a blade at this point. I don't recommend multitasking your first tries on doing the Mokume Gane. There's just some scrap steel. That's a tube I use to put my blade in to get it to quenching temperature. And now I'm just using it to keep my anvil nice and warm. So here I got maybe a little bit too aggressive with the hammering, and you'll see the stack kind of starts to go a bit diagonal. I was kind of in a rush because I knew I was getting low on propane, so I would recommend not being as aggressive as I was here. You can kind of straighten it out, which you'll see me do in a second, or attempt to, but once it starts to go diagonal, it can look cool, but you will end up with more delamination on the edges easily. Back into the heat, beat, repeat. That's something that's just best to take your time with it and make sure you keep that billet nice and hot. 3 or 4 cycles. Now I'm ready to get that canthal wire off. I try to do this as soon as I'm confident that the weld is set, because otherwise it gets harder to get the wire out, and the wire will leave indentations that you're going to have to either hammer out or grind out. So the thicker it is, the easier it is to just hammer it out and get it nice and smooth and not have to grind off material. Make sure you have a good grip on the material with your tongs when doing this. Otherwise, you're yanking on that wire. It can go flying out of the tongs and could end up pretty bad. So take your time. It's when it's hot, it's going to come out easier. So I'm pretty much running out of fuel at this point. I'm running on fumes, and I heated it a little bit more just to make it easier to get the rest of the wire out of there. When it's hot, it's easier to see if you left any pieces of wire. Sometimes it breaks off. You can get it out easier that way. Yeah, it's always annoying to run out of propane in the middle of a project, but luckily I got most of the work done. It was just in the nick of time. So here I just use the remaining heat in the forge to get it a little bit hot again and kind of planish it and flatten it out, make it nice and as smooth as possible to continue working on. I believe I mentioned in the first video showing how to set up the quarters, the sound And you hear it's a different sound now that it's solid. So that's something to pay attention to. That'll help you know when your weld is set. Alright, of course, since I was recording, it makes Murphy's Law where anything that can go wrong goes wrong. Had a few little problems. One, the stack went off center, so it went diagonal. Not a big deal. It's actually kind of a cool shape for a guard or a bolster. And then my forge ran out of fuel. Ran out of propane. I multitasked. I was trying to heat treat quench two knives at the same time, so that I don't recommend doing that. Just keep your attention just on the Mokume Gane when you're first trying it out. And yeah, they hardened. That's good. But this, I used as much of the heat as I could after the gas started going out. So I set the weld. It did go off center, which between, like, let's see, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quarters down from the top. I saw a little bit of a gap that I was worried did not set correctly. I started to grind it down on the sides just to see. Actually, the pattern looks pretty cool already. Just hit it on the belt grinder real quick, and that might come apart. I'm not sure. I threw it on the ground several times to see if I could break it apart. It's not moving. But after I did that, it did look like this did make more of a gap between these top 5 coins. So that's okay. I got it pretty much where I want it to start working on it to start on the pattern before I draw it out more. What I'm going to actually do is just hit it on the belt grinder to get rid of these little grooves and those little spaces between them, because no matter what you do, unless you sit there and try to clean them out, and then yeah, it's not worth it. I'm just going to grind those down flat like this, and it makes it easier to draw it out into one single piece. I'll go into the pattern design. I'm going to try something new on this, I think, in a next video. You'll see little lines in it from the Kanthal wire. So it's really great when you can get that out as soon as you're sure and confident that it welded together. That's solid. Otherwise, when you get it too flat and those go deeper and deeper, it's a lot of material to grind out, and it sucks. So I had a little bit of difficulty this time getting that out for some reason, and I was like, I could hear the gas was going on the forge, and yeah. But anyway, I'm not sure if all 5 are totally, all 5, or it was 475 in quarters. Yeah, there's this one little area here I'm kind of skeptical about, but as I grind it down all the way around a little bit, I'll get a better idea. And it's really not a big deal. I mean, 2 pieces like that, I could make a lot of things out of. One solid one is what I'm going for, though. So I'm going to go hit it on the grinder, and we'll come back and take a quick look at it. Okay, so I ground down the sides. I'm not sure how well the camera is picking it up, but it's almost like a wood grain pattern on the sides just as is. It's pretty cool. It's one thing with Mokume Gane is you'll end up doing unnecessary work a lot just to see how it looks. So you'll sit there and sand it and polish it, whatever, even though you know you're going to forge it out more. I actually even hit it with a propane torch, or whatever it is, propane and multi-gas. The more you do that, you'll see the colors pop, the grain pop, and if you do it methodically, you can get all sorts of colors out of it. I'm still a little skeptical. This groove here pretty much goes all the way around. What I'm thinking is I don't want to just keep grinding and grind everything away. I'm going to leave it as is, get it as smooth as possible, maybe just hit the grinder real quick one more time, and when I go to heat it up again to put a pattern into it, I'm going to get it really hot again and just squish it down a little bit more. Maybe I'll make those weld together better. I don't know. Next is going to be the pattern welding, or pattern design. I think I'm going to try something different on this. This is something I've been searching for new ideas for, so anyone who knows something cool, let me know. So far, what I've been doing is I'll take like a big fat drill bit and drill little dimples in, and after that, when you draw it out and flatten it out, it makes these spirals from the layers. What I found works really cool is you do that once and then let it, cool, get it out of the forge, and then do it again and then draw it out more, and you'll get more and more. But I want to try to make a really tight, detailed pattern on this one. So, normally I just put it under the drill press and just put a bunch of holes in it. Not holes, but I'm going maybe like a millimeter or so. Like on this, I went very little. That's the first pattern. And yeah, and then I'm going to try something a little different. I mean, you can use the cross peen. You can do all sorts of stuff. It's kind of like the patterns in Damascus, I guess you could say. There's raindrop or ladder or whatever. I've seen people do like a ladder design, and it wasn't very impressive. But the cool thing about this is you could do it exactly the same way on two different pieces, and it's never really going to come out the same. But I'm trying to figure out something that makes a very definite, tight, and interesting pattern. So I might even look through my Dremel bits and try different designs in this before the next. I have to go get propane and before I start to draw it out. So I'll do the pattern making in a separate video that'll be linked above and below. But this was just how to make the actual forge weld from the quarters. First video was showing you how to stack the quarters. That works really good. Usually better than this. Like I said, it went off. It's diagonal, but that actually ends up making a very cool pattern as well. So I'm happy with it so far. Let's see how it's going to turn out in the next video.